Hello there, this is Daniel West for Picket Studios. Today we're going to make a pair of matching cards in the same style. We're just going to mix up the composition a little bit. And these are going to feature new stamps for February 2022. And the Chloe's Garden little bunny rabbits, the Endless Clouds background stamp, and some grass that I kind of made up with one of the dies from the Hippity Hoppity to All die set. So we're going to start out our project by adding some Bellini ink from Catherine Pooler to the front of a card front, an A2 size card front, using life-changing blender brushes. So much fun to just add this ink in a gradient from the top to the bottom, and then we're just going to stamp the Endless Clouds background stamp to the front with some clear embossing ink, and then melt some white puff embossing powder over the front of it with a heat tool. I just love this embossing powder. I'm using one of the new tools from Rabbit Hole Designs, the anti-static powder tool. Because my ink is a little wet, Catherine Pooler's ink stays wet just a little longer. And what happens is if you pour embossing powder over that, it's going to stick in places you don't want it to. But because this is white puff embossing powder, it's easy to pull up with a sand eraser. So I just grabbed my little mono sand eraser and lightly ran it over the tops of those pieces that stuck where I didn't want them. And they come right off. Super easy. So now I'm taking out some In the Park ink from Catherine Pooler and stamping up the slimline grass stamp onto the bottom of this card front. I just love the Bellini and In the Park combo. Super cool, wonderful palette. And now you can see I've stamped, die cut, and Copic colored all of those little images out. I did that off camera because I just did a bunch of them. And then I backed them all with some foam tape that I cut up. Now you can see that I used a big piece of mint tape to hold them all together. You can use whatever kind of adjustable tape you've got just to keep the scene together. It's a wonderful tip once you've got the scene laid out the way you want it to keep them all together without fussing around with them. I just put a piece of removable tape on the front, and then I press them down into the front of my card front and add a little bit of even pressure with an acrylic block. And I'm easily peeling this up off the front, carefully peeling it up. And I had to press the shovel back down into the foam tape. Now here I'm taking that die from the Hippity Hoppity to All stamp set, the coordinating die, and I'm taking just the grass part of the top, because I didn't have the actual die yet. I had ordered it from Picket, but it was on its way when I was filming this, and it didn't get here in time for the filming of this video. So I just improvised, and I trimmed it down off the bottom, and then popped it up on the front right over the feet of my little bunny rabbits. These are super cute. And it wasn't long enough, so I just trimmed another little piece off and put it onto the end there. Popped it up with the foam tape, and then I'm adding some score tape to the back of this because I used some pretty thin paper. And I'm tucking it into the corner of my score buddy, so all the lines and corners are even. I can see a little bit of my card base tucking out from behind my front panel, so I trimmed it down, and now it's just perfect. Isn't it beautiful? I love it. Now for the second card, I haven't finished the first, but we'll come back. The second card, we're going to do basically the same little setup, but we're going to turn the orientation of the card to portrait, stamp the same grass and the same ink onto the bottom, and we're only going to fill about half the card, but 2/3 of the way up, if that makes sense. So I'm going to add the Bellini ink into the sky in a gradient in the same way, having masked it off at the top. And then I'm going to stamp in the clouds, masking it off again before I lay down the Versamark ink. I can lay it down once and then move my card panel over and just eyeball it and get that second image of my endless stamp placed in right next to the first one. So when I pour embossing powder over this, I'm going to be able to pull up some that's stuck to my mint tape, but none of that matters because it won't be stuck to my card panel. Now, if I had pulled up that tape before I poured my powder over it, it would adhere to the top of my card base because that mint tape will leave a little bit of sticky residue. Not really enough to see, but enough for the embossing powder to feel it. So I just wanted to avoid that. Little clue there, little tip there. So once you've got that all melted, grab some of that new foam tape roll from Picket Fence, the big thick roll. It's just beautiful foam tape. It's thick, really thick. So I use it for the back of card panels. It just adds a wonderful, solid backing to them, even all the way across. I like it a lot. And for smaller things, I just use cut up little pieces of foam tape, like this little bunny I had left over. For the sentiment, I'm going to stamp out Happy Easter and Let's Plant Flowers and Watch Them Grow from the Chloe's Garden stamp set with some Picket Fence hybrid ink. And then die cut one of them out because it has a coordinating die. We'll back it with some foam tape, put it on the front, and all it needs is some bling. Picket Fence has you covered there. Just an amazing selection of sequins available. For the second card, I fussy cut my sentiment and popped it up on foam tape. Look at this, the Bunny Express sequin mix. It's just full of amazing little bits for shakers, and I made a few shakers with this release, but for this one I'm just going to use some of the actual, just the sequins. So some of the matching colors are wonderful for this one, white and kind of peach color there. I just love it. And I do my sequins in a W, or a zigzag. So I just lay down some liquid adhesive in a W shape or zigzag, and then kind of tuck them underneath the things that are popped up. That's my formula for successful sequin placement. I love it. I love this color palette. The illustrations, you still get funner than these. These are super cute. Not because I made them, but I put together someone else's stuff, but it's just so beautiful. I love it. I hope you've enjoyed these two little cards, and if you're excited about grabbing some of the supplies I used, I'm sure they'll all be listed in the description box below. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week.